There are 6 teams that their fan bases think they're really, really good, and their record might suggest they are. But we're going to decide today if the Green Bay Packers and others are as good as they think. We'll talk about it today on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of The Barbershop, the afternoon version of Locked On NFL. And I'm joined today on Mondays, as I always am, by my man Julian Council from Locked On Panthers. We're going to go through some stories today from around the National Football League that's going to prime us up and get us ready for training camp, which basically starts this week for a lot of people, and I know everyone is happy about that. Shout out to the everydayers who join us every single day and make us your first listen here on Locked On NFL. And if you're new, I hope I give you a reason to stick around. Here's what we're going to do. At the end of the show, I don't tell you how Denver won't sneak up on people this year, but I'll get Julian's opinion on that to see if Sean Payton understands that, and it does not matter. Right smack in the middle of this, I got to admit that it does not feel like 30 years since the Cowboys have won. But that's exactly how long it's been since they won a Super Bowl, even though they're in the news all the time. We're going to start it at the top, though. I'm going to ask, is the hate for Jordan Love real or not? Is it hate or is it just constructive criticism? All of these teams and 3 more have something in common. On paper, they look to be really, really good, but we're going to dissect it a little bit here today on Locked On NFL to see if we think they're as good as their fans do. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. We will not hesitate. We're going to jump right into it. Julian Council, the Green Bay Packers come to mind as that team that every year, it feels like they wake up and win 10, right? They're going to go 10 and 6, 10 and 7, maybe a little bit better. They can beat anybody on any given day, but for some reason, I can't be convinced that they're going to get over the hump.
Yeah, I mean, you're a Packers hater. That's what everyone's saying. That's what I've heard. You're right. Matt LaFleur has done a really good job with that Packers team. I know when he was first hired, I was pretty skeptical. I was in Tennessee at the time when he was the OC, and it's not like the Titans were doing anything. And it was like, okay, how did this guy because typically you have to be a really good OC or right. DC to get a job. And hell, Mike Vrabel didn't have a good defense down in Texas when he got that job with the Titans, but still, maybe before went up there and they've had success. Did a good job. Aaron Rodgers has done a good job with Jordan Love. I know things have been up and down with Jordan during his tenure as starting quarterback the last 2 years, but Green Bay is in a spot again this year where they're going to be contending for a playoff spot, and depends on how things play out because the dynamics in that division have certainly changed now that Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn have left Detroit. Jared Goff will see what he's able to do this season. The Lions already have another serious injury. Season hasn't even begun yet. So I am very, very interested to see what Green Bay is able to do this season and think that, they're going to be, of course, among the talks of those contenders in the NFC.
Well, it starts and stops with the quarterback, just like it does for everyone else. And I think Jordan Love gets a lot of love, but then he also gets a lot of hate. But the hate can be probably described more as constructive criticism because he's going to get it until they win. He's got a lot of help, though. Listen to Peter Bukowski. Nice, long clip here, but he's going to talk about some of the players that have to play well in order for Green Bay to win it.
For the Green Bay Packers to get where they want to go in 2025, they need these players to hit their ceilings, the guys whose play will ultimately dictate how far Green Bay can go this season. I think this is going to surprise people. I am going to pick Edgerrin Cooper because if Edgerrin Cooper plays 17 games in the playoffs, the way that he played at the end of last season, he is the defensive difference maker this team needs. Where I think Edgerrin Cooper has the ability to be truly a game breaker. And I think the most likely high-end outcome for him is like Fred Warner, someone like that. And if you don't have to get that version this year, but if you're going to get something approximate to that, if he's going to level up this year, you raise the ceiling of this team immensely. Now, I do want to take an offensive player here as well. Tucker Kraft hits what I think is a reasonable outcome for him this year, he could be Trey McBride. I mean, maybe not in terms of pure volume. He had 100 catches last year or whatever it was. But I mean, in terms of on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8, or in the red zone, or in a big spot, you can call a play for him. And he's going to get open. He's going to make the catch. You can funnel offense through him. He's so reliable. He is so tough after the catch. He's so big and physical. He's a tone setter. Chris Long said on Mina Kimes podcast this week that last year they did a training camp tour. The only team they saw as big and physical in the same ballpark as the Philadelphia Eagles, the Green Bay Packers. Tucker Kraft is one of the reasons for that. And he is a tone setter.
I played that lengthy clip for a reason. Peter better be careful, because when you start naming all of these really good players and great players that Green Bay has, if y'all don't win, they're going to point right at that quarterback, because he's not going to have any cover. He's not going to have any excuses. I think Jordan Love's very good. I think he's been inopportunistic when it comes to a few drops, a couple of costly turnovers, an injury here or there, but it always seems to come at the wrong time. Another team that we'll get to here that has a lot of names on lists and a lot of high picks, 4, in fact, on the offensive side of the ball in the top 10 or at skill positions. It's the team that you know very well from the NFC South, the Atlanta Falcons. That's another team that just doesn't have an identity. I'm going to listen to this from my man Aaron Freeman, and then you come back and tell us if you believe in the Falcons or not, Julian.
Bijan Robinson is on the rise in the Locked On NFL Top 100. I'm Aaron Freeman with Locked On Falcons. According to my Locked On Podcast Network peers, Bijan Robinson is the 34th best player in the entire NFL in the Locked On NFL Top 100 rankings. That puts him as RB3 behind Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, both ranked in the top 15. I think that's a mostly fair ranking for Bijan Robinson. And both Barkley and Henry, given the seasons they're coming off in 2024. But I think Robinson is an ascending player, and I'm very optimistic that by the end of this upcoming 2025 NFL season, he'll widely be considered the best running back in all of football.
Oh, my God. We just skipped all over Jahmyr Gibbs, but that's all right. We ain't going to argue with Aaron about that one. Atlanta, between the tight end, the quarterback, Bijan, as you just mentioned, and, of course, the wide receiver, Drake London. That's 4 guys that got picked, I believe, in the top 8 of the draft. But yet still, they don't have an offensive identity. What do you think about the Falcons?
I think their offensive identity is running the football. At least that's what it should be. Because if you talk about, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I think it was like LaDainian Tomlinson and one other it was LaDainian Tomlinson, Edgerrin James. Those are the only other guys who has like as many production as in their first 2 years of their career as Bijan Robinson, who, of course, I mean, that would put him on a Hall of Fame track. And like he's a dude for them. Tyler Allgeier is a dude for them as well. So I think that's a team that has to lean on running the football. And like that's the best thing you can do for a young quarterback, which is what Michael Penix Jr. is. He may be older than most guys at this stage of his career, but still, he's a young guy who only has a couple of starts. And he looked good the last time out, week 18, against what was the worst scoring defense in the history of the NFL, and that Panthers defense. I don't know how much you can take away from that in particular, but I do like him as a prospect and as a guy who steps in now as full-time starter in Atlanta. So having a good run game, having those offensive weapons is great, but I think really leaning on that run, maybe play action could be what their identity could be. But we'll see. Like, do I believe in the Falcons? Like, no. It's Atlanta. Like, come on, like, how am I supposed to ever turn around believing in a franchise that blew a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl? Like, no, I don't have belief. Like, they spent all that money on Kirk Cousins last offseason. I haven't gone through the whole quarterback deal on Netflix, but apparently he felt like he was hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok when they decided to go out there and to get Michael Penix Jr., which was kind of wild. But if you do think he can be that dude, then yeah, maybe you don't pass up on him in that situation. We'll find out this year. So yeah, they've struggled defensively a little bit better last year. Like this is a pretty big year for Raheem Morris. It's only year 2. And like that pressure cooker in Atlanta, where Tampa's still the top team in the NFC South. I think Carolina's going to be improved this year. New Orleans, they're going to be terrible. But we'll see with Atlanta, but I believe like Green Bay, we talked about earlier. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about Green Bay being a contender. Atlanta, I don't know what to expect other than like 8-9, 9-8, and probably some hellacious losses in there.
The Dallas Cowboys are next on the docket. We're going to see if they can win again for the first time in 30 years. We'll do it today on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You've already followed the action. Now, why not make it more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I mean, Scotty Scheffler, man, he's on a tiger-like run, right? He even had me watching golf yesterday on a Sunday. I'm telling you, he is that good. Make sure you check that out and go to FanDuel, because if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today's show is also sponsored and brought to you by BetterHelp. Workplace stress is at an all-time high. 61% of the global workforce is reporting higher than normal stress levels. This summer is the perfect time to take small steps to focus on your wellness and manage the challenges that come with your workday. Of course, most of us can't just quit our jobs and take endless vacations, but we can start small, whether it's getting outside for a few minutes, adding movement into your day, or talking to someone who can help you navigate life's challenges. That's where BetterHelp comes in. I know it helps me. Sometimes you can get overloaded with work and home. You need to just take a few minutes to exercise a few things that'll help you get back on track. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, man, we're moving and grooving here on Locked On NFL. Julian Council in with me, Tony Wiggins. We're going through some teams that have some questions. They look and appear to be very good on paper and seem like they're very, very dangerous. But there's always something that gets in the way. And for 30 years, something has gotten in the Dallas Cowboys' way. It hasn't been attention. It hasn't been the star. It might be Jera. But whatever the reason it is, it seems like they are underachieving. They have a whole lot of talent on that team. And it just seems like for some reason, Dallas is going to Dallas. Even a couple of years ago when they won more games than people expected, they didn't make it. Here's the boys from Locked On Cowboys talking about the Dallas Cowboys.
Let's talk about Micah Parsons, because I think this is a really interesting ranking. I'm honestly, I'm sort of surprised that he's the second-ranked defensive player, but that's noticeable. I think what he's done over the last couple of years, he's really established himself as one of the franchise cornerstones across the NFL. And no surprise, it is CeeDee Lamb coming in at number 19. Not shocked to see CeeDee on this list. The numbers that CeeDee has posted over the last couple of years are absolutely insane. Brandon Aubrey is the next player on the list for the Dallas Cowboys 24. I mean, he is just an absolute weapon. He's also a weapon in the kickoff game. And then the fourth, of course, is Dak Prescott coming in at 93 on this list, which feels...
Okay, so he's talking about the top 100 list that Locked On NFL have done, us and our colleagues. It was a lot of fun and created a lot of talk. The one thing I will tell you about Dallas, they didn't mention Deron Bland setting an NFL record for pick sixes. They didn't mention Trayvon Diggs around here intercepting everything and leading the league in interceptions. They didn't mention all the pass rushers that have come through Dallas and gotten contracts on other teams. You keep talking about all of this talent. At some point, people are going to say, okay, where are the wins, Julian?
Well, the wins aren't there when Dak Prescott gets hurt. And when he is healthy, the wins are there. It's just that they have some fatal flaw. Like a couple of years ago when Jordan Love and those Packers went down there and beat the brakes off of them in the wild card round, they had terrible defense. There's been issues with the kickers in the past. There's been issues with, was it a catch? Was it not a catch? I mean, the list goes on. And it certainly has always been one of my biggest frustrations sitting here only as a 32-year-old man, having the Cowboys shoved down my throat every single day of the week because they were good back before I was alive. Like, look, you can go to NFL Network and they have the old NFL films. You can see what Dallas used to do. You can see all what those teams used to do, which is awesome. It's great to understand the history and where you came from. But like at some point, like we gotta move on, right? And
Or
like,
they got to win again, or they got to actually, they got to live up to the hype some sort of way, right?
I mean, what's the hype at this point in time? Is there any hype for Dallas? Like, aren't they third as far as when you look at FanDuel, as far as the odds to win the NFC East this upcoming season? I mean, I think they're going to be much better. But like the hype's about Washington in that division. The hype's obviously about Philadelphia coming off of a Super Bowl. They lost a lot defensively, but still the Eagles aren't going to, take a massive step back. So I think Dallas will be fine. I do. But do I think that this is going to be magically the year where it all comes together? No, I can't say I do. But I'm sure there's plenty of Cowboy fans saying, how about them Cowboys who believe that this could be the year? And honestly, at this point, let's just get it over with. Let's finally get there so we can justify putting them on Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, Thursday night, Saturday, and every damn day of the week football at this point in time for the NFL. And so like these last 30 years of just, well, really it's been like the last 10 plus years of just getting so much Cowboys finally pays off.
It's almost like reality TV. It's almost like you know what's going to happen, but you need that drama a little bit. Now, personally, I grew up rooting against the Cowboys, so I kind of love it a little bit because not to the Stephen A level where I'm going to celebrate everything that they do bad. But but I will say this. I kind of want to see it. And sometimes you sitting there thinking like maybe this is the year. Maybe they start doing it right. And what I mean by doing it right is a team like Minnesota, who has done it right. Minnesota has a great coaching staff. They have great organization. They have great scouting and the way that they draft. But here's the thing. They ain't won nothing either. So if you're going to give Dallas grief, you ought to give the people grief that have done all of the stuff you say Dallas needs to do. Now, Luke Braun is talking about their quarterback situation. He said something that I've never heard someone say who expects their team to win. I want you to listen to this.
I think if JJ McCarthy is above average, this team has a chance to go very far. I think they're built where above average quarterbacking can turn into 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns. Like I think halfway decent quarterbacking can make for an elite Vikings team because of the way the team is constructed. And we kind of saw that last year. It would probably be too harsh on Sam Darnold to call him okay the way he played last year. I think he played better than okay last year. But I do think that like he drove that bus more than he gets credit for.
All right. Sam Darnold getting credit from Luke Braun. He probably won't get no credit for everybody else, but that's what I was just saying. They're so good that even Luke thinks an average game manager is good enough. I, however, would hope that since this kid was a top 10 pick, JJ McCarthy, since he was picked that high, that there's a little bit more hope for him as we move forward than to just be a dude who's just surrounded by a bunch of people managing things.
Yeah, well, I mean, just do your 111th. That's really what you got to do. Football, as we all know, is the ultimate team game. Like you have to do your job. Everyone else has to do your job in order for that play, that team, that season to be successful. So I think that's kind of where Luke's coming from. Like with Sam Darnold, he played within himself. And when he struggled late in the season, it was a lot to do with the pressure. And that guy cannot handle pressure. And I've never been a big fan of Sam, dating back to his last season at USC when there was all the hype in the world of him going to the Jets. And then when he had a short time here in Carolina, but I was impressed by what he's able to do last year, where he just went out there and did his job. And like, that's all you're asking JJ McCarthy to do. Like he did not put up massive numbers at Michigan, but he played on a lot of winning football teams. Why? Because they were built well up front. On a defensive line, we see some of those guys like Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, those guys get drafted recently. And we saw offensive line-wise, they've had some guys get drafted. That's what Jim Harbaugh built up there in Ann Arbor, a good, solid team in the trenches. And I think they have that, a good, solid team in the trenches. And they had a great defense in Michigan. They have a great defense up there in Minnesota. Like when they won a national championship, they weren't winning it because JJ McCarthy. Mm-mm. And I know that Jim sat up there at the podium, said he's the best quarterback in the history of Michigan football, which I was like, okay, that's kind of crazy, but like he did win at a high level when they needed to make a throw in the Rose Bowl against Alabama. He made the throw. Like, do I sit here and think that he's going to go out in the NFL and be like a great quarterback and really somebody you're going to lean on with his arm? I'm having a hard time seeing it from what I have seen from JJ McCarthy in really those 2 full seasons as a starter at Michigan. But the guy has already been in a system with the guy who's an NFL coach in an NFL kind of scheme where he was just asked to do his job. So I kind of agree with Luke. Like, if he does his job, they'll be fine. If he doesn't do his job, that's kind of where things fall apart. And that can be said with any player. But as we always know, there's a hyper focus on the quarterback when, like, it's a team game and you have to have a lot around the quarterback to even have that success.
That is a great point. And I'll tell you this, for usually when we talk about those manager types, they're guys that have a little bit of a limited physical skill set. This kid doesn't have a limited. He is a great athlete who can throw. He can make a throw. You'll be, wow. You just don't want him to try to do it all the time. You need to kind of manage that and pull that back. It's almost like if you had Jay Cutler, but you put a harness on him a little bit. That's what I'm talking about. A guy who can make that throw when he has to, but can also do it under adverse circumstances and not be nervous. And when you win a national championship, it kind of says that you have that in your DNA, that you can be cool under pressure. So we'll see if he translates that to the NFL. Now, Denver won't sneak up on anybody. You know what they say, it ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun. Well, last year, people didn't have high expectations. They do now. I believe Sean Payton, though, as the head coach, is built to manage that. Well, I'll tell you why in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Rougiet. Guys, you probably heard of Viagra, Cialis, maybe you even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiet Ready. Rougiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 seconds. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. Now, if traditional options haven't worked, Rougiet may be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Head to Rougiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's Rougiet, RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individuals may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiet website for full safety information. All right, third and final segment here on Locked On NFL, talking about teams, the things that they have to do to not be underachievers, especially the ones that are super, super talented. And now we get to the Denver Broncos. They are now, this time last year, people were saying, well, not people, I was saying, Sean Payton gonna get fired messing around with Bo Nix. And who are they drafting? Guess what? They shocked the world, man, and played really, really well last year with a very, very good defense. They got a little bit more to go on offense, but it seems like they're making all the right moves off the field. Here's my man Sarah from out at Locked On Broncos to tell you about those Broncos.
The Denver Broncos officially got their first-round pick, Jahdae Barron, in the fold. He signed his 4-year rookie contract with the team, just as rookies are reporting for Denver Broncos training camp. And the holdup in the contract potentially was the signing bonus that Barron was set to receive this year. He received a signing bonus of just under $9.8 million, which is $2 million more than last year's 20th overall pick, Troy Fautanu of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Denver Broncos now have their first round pick in the mix, and he is set to compete for a job in this defense along with Pat Surtain, the Defensive Player of the Year, and Riley Moss, one of the team's top breakout players in 2024.
I was actually shocked he fell that far in the draft. And when he did, I said, man, this is what good teams do. They sit there, and if a player comes in, they already have a very good defensive back group with the two players as mentioned, and Pat Surtain being considered the best. They just added another player. This is typical old school coach. Whatever we do good, we're going to do that even better. And that's one thing that they can build on.
Yeah, it's just crazy that the best corner in college football went 20th overall. Oh, actually, no, he went 3rd overall, right? Travis Hunter, but for whatever reason, people gave Jahdae Barron a Thorpe Award that gets awarded to the best corner. Had a great year at Texas last year. Good player. And I mean, look, with him and Riley Moss and obviously Pat Surtain, like that's going to be a pretty formidable trio. And you got to have 3 guys. And I do think that he's probably better in the slot. So it'll be interesting to see how they're going to utilize him in that defense down there in Denver. But yeah, it's going to be an exciting season. It's a good thing. Like the Broncos, like that's been a franchise that has had obviously championship seasons. That's a fan base that's really passionate. And really, since 2015, when they beat the Panthers in the Super Bowl, both of those organizations have just kind of fallen off a cliff. Now, Carolina had one season back in 2017 where they made the playoffs, and then they have not been back. I haven't really been close to being back. Denver, like they fell off also. And now they have their young quarterback and the coach that they believe in. Of course, a Super Bowl winning head coach in Sean Payton. So there should be excitement. And I'm glad for that Denver Broncos fan base that they have that. And, you know, the hang up will always be that you have Kansas City in your division, but eventually at some point in time, right, someone's going to unseat them. And looking around, LA, maybe. I think Harbaugh's a winner. Herbert did not leave a great taste in our mouths the last time we saw him, but I think they'll be fine. And then like with Las Vegas, well, it's the Raiders, and it's not Al Davis Raiders, unfortunately. So it's kind of hard to like believe in them at this point in time. But like, if anybody's going to do it, like, why not be Denver?
Yeah. Yeah. In a very tough place to play. Also, they do a lot of things right. I just want to know where the big plays are going to come from, because everybody needs them, right? There's another team that I'm not as concerned about whether or not they're going to make big plays, but whether they do a whole bunch of things right. That's the Miami Dolphins. Like my man Matt Williamson says on Friday, too many Ferraris, not enough dump trucks. Tyreek Hill is the main Ferrari. Listen to Kyle Krabs talk about his future.
I don't know that you'll be invested in Tyreek beyond 2025, but it feels like they're invested in him here in the here and now. And you make peace with that and you say, okay, like, we're going to ride it out for another year and then see where Tyreek Hill's at with his age 32 season when he's owed a whole lot of money. So I'm sure people will ask with Juwan Jennings. ESPN's Adam Schefter did report it today that he either wants a new contract or wants to be traded. There's pathways in which it would make sense for the Dolphins, but I think it's the right kind of player at the wrong time, personally, for where the Dolphins are at.
I don't know what they're going to do. They got rid of Jalen Ramsey, who was an older player. They let Christian Wilkins go, who was a younger player. They still got Bradley Chubb, who's an older injured player. It's just like with Miami, I have no idea the direction that they're going. Tyreek Hill can still play, but if he did have a little bit of regression, it wouldn't surprise me. Maybe the only person lately that I have never seen get worse on the field was Antonio Brown. He was still good until he decided he didn't want to play anymore. Tyreek Hill, what do you think about him now? And what do you think about his read? What is your read on him and Miami together?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's one of the top players in the league. And I would expect that he's going to be obviously a big part of that offense again this season. And the Dolphins are interesting to me because I think a lazier analyst would be like, well, you know, in Miami, it's such a nice place to live. And those guys have all these things to do that you can't build a tough football team. Like that's what some lazy person would do. But I look at them and I do wonder, like, what is their philosophy when building that team? Because, you know, Mike McDaniel comes over from, he's been there for a little bit now, but he came over from that Shanahan system. You look at the way that team is built in San Francisco, like they're great up front. No, that is a physical football team. And when you get rid of a player like Christian Wilkins, don't keep him around, like, does that keep you as a physical football team? Like I look at them kind of just more finesse, if anything, and like that just cannot work. I feel like because obviously Philadelphia, I mean, they bludgeon teams with their physicality, and like this is just a game where it's the guy in front of you, and you got to move him. And if you can't do that, and you don't have that mentality, I just think it's obviously hard to win football games. And when they played a couple of years ago when they're in the playoffs in Kansas City. And when it was cold, did you think that Miami was going to have the physicality and kind of toughness to go out there and to win that game in those elements? No, you never felt that was going to be the case. And I think until this organization, whether it's under Mike McDaniel or whoever it's going to be, I mean, Stephen Ross can be the owner, until they kind of change just mentality-wise how they build this team, we're just gonna be talking about the Dolphins in a way where, yeah, they can go to the playoffs, but I mean, they're gonna be done because they're gonna be playing on the road and they're gonna be playing in a cold environment, and these guys just aren't gonna be able to handle that for 60 minutes.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. I hear that all the time too about distractions of South Florida. The Rams are in LA. You don't think there's distractions in LA? You don't think there's distractions for players in Atlanta? You don't think there's distractions in Houston?
Yeah.
You don't think there's distractions for millionaires that live in New Orleans? What about New York City? If you got money and they make airplanes, your distraction is like a cab fare to somebody that thinks they have to get on a plane and fly overseas to have fun. I know South Beach is all that. I know it's fun, but don't give me that. How come Pat Riley can make people win down there? I mean, that's
right.
It's all.
Well, we hear about that heat culture though. Like we hear about heat culture, and like they get guys. I mean, I know how it finished with Jimmy Butler wasn't great, but like they got a guy like Jimmy Butler when it was good, and like they had that kind of like it's and like Florida Panthers just won a Stanley Cup. It just seems that the other organizations in town, Marlins suck, but the other organizations in town kind of have a mentality like hockey. Those you can't not be a tough SOB and play in the NHL and go as deep as they've gone and go back to back. Like, I don't think people understand how difficult and how much of a toll on your body it is to win a Stanley Cup in back-to-back years. It's just you look around, in particular heat culture, and this Florida, and you wonder with the Panthers, like, how is it that they have been able to build those championship cultures, and a team that was the championship team in the city continuously falls well short of that?
Now, you just said something. You said two things. You said it's their culture, and then you also alluded to they go get certain people. That is actually the job of the front office and the operations staff at the Miami Dolphins to do that. Don't be blaming weather. Don't be blaming Club 24/7, whatever it is down there. You can't be doing that. You got to blame yourself because other people are sitting right there in the lion's den and they're getting success. You need to be able to do the same thing if you're the Miami Dolphins. You can get that success right here on Locked On NFL. Hopefully your team will start winning. Hopefully the teams that Julian and I cover will start winning. The Locked On NFL Top 100 is here. It's voted on by the NFL host of the Locked On Podcast Network. Our Top 100 was formed by experts that cover these teams and players every day. Find a full list on Locked On Sports today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't miss our reaction. I've had several of them to where the Jaguars and even the Panthers players have landed. Make sure you tap in as we get ready for training camp, man. We're going to talk about players. We're going to talk about teams, rosters. Make sure you follow your team on Locked On NFL because it's your team every day. And most of us will be out there on the ground, boots on the ground at training camp. All right, man, you guys take care. Julian and I are going to get to it. We'll see you next time on Locked On NFL.